Hello and welcome to DigFin VOX, Voices in Digital Finance. I'm your host, Jame DiBiasio. If you enjoy what we're doing here, please give me a like and get the YouTube algorithm to take more notice of what we're doing so we can spread it to more people. My guest today is Gil Bashan, Chief Commercial Officer at StrongNode, a US technology company that is developing games for all kinds of people to participate and, in some cases, earn money. I spoke with Gil about why is this happening, who's benefiting, and if you're sitting in your office at a bank, does this matter? Gil Bashan, welcome to DigFin VOX.
Thanks, Jame. Really appreciate you having me. There's a lot of cool things that are going on, and I'm really happy to talk to you about them.
Yeah, great. So we have, this is going to be an interesting segment. I've been looking forward to this. Obviously DigFin is all about, it's about finance. It's putting the digital into finance, whether you're an institutional or if you're a startup. And so the idea that we're going to be talking today about gaming seems kind of lateral, right? But obviously we're seeing some intersections that are first happening in the crypto space, which might be, again, a little bit edgier for some people in financial services, but still, I think, could start bleeding into fintech more broadly. So great to have you on today's program. So tell us a little bit about the StrongNode, the company that you're working with, and help us understand a little bit about, just first, I guess, what you guys are doing, and then we'll talk about some of its relevancy into both blockchain finance and perhaps broader.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Chief Product Officer of StrongNode. What StrongNode does is it leverages people's idle resources on their smart devices, on their laptops, smart TVs, phones, and utilizes those to basically power an edge network. That edge network can be used across different industries, similar to how all these different real world industries use Amazon AWS. They could kind of leverage our technology closer to the edge user. So reducing latency, bringing on, more security. And then, kind of the way we're going about that is we're building all these real world B2C platforms that are going to help scale that network in a symbiotic way.
Can you just, when you talk about scaling these networks in a symbiotic way, just give us an anecdote, like bring this down to a real life example so people understand what it is you're trying to achieve.
Sure. So, using kind of the network effect, we know that in order for a network to scale, we need to have more users on the network. Because if we're going to be using, or I wouldn't say using, but if we're going to be leveraging the power of different users around the globe to power our network, we want to make sure that we have even distribution and we're able to scale that out. So, a good example of that is our first innovations lab platform called Original Gamer Life is going to basically bring in or work to bring in the billions of traditional gamers that are, playing games around the world and bring them into this network.
Okay, and then once you track people into the network, then what do you do with them? Like, what you amass? I mean, there's lots of platforms out there that are built around amassing lots of eyeballs and attention. What is the next thing that you would do that's relevant?
So the platform itself is leveraging blockchain in order to maximize the amount of money that people can earn by playing games. So there's this new kind of wave coming around. A lot of these games are popping up with a play to earn model. What play to earn means is, it's pretty self-explanatory, where you play a game and you are rewarded in some way. In the back end, what you're doing is essentially you're playing this game. It's usually the kind of like the free to play model. And in the back end, you're basically playing the game and it's basically like pulling levers and pushing buttons in the DeFi world. So this is where we kind of get into, fintech more, where DeFi is starting to bring on some benefits that the average person can really tap into.
And is this something that players are aware of? I mean, do they need to even be thinking about this, or are they just playing a game?
So that's where there's different schools of thought. There's a lot of companies out there that really, in terms of marketing, they really focus on the blockchain part. But we know that this kind of dissuades a lot of people from getting involved. Blockchain and crypto is very confusing. A lot of people still think it's very scammy. And what we want to do is make it so simple. Since we are a technology and gaming company first, we want to make it so simple that people don't even need to know that there's blockchain in the background that is helping them earn money by just playing games, or in the StrongNode sense, by just providing their computer while they sleep to power this network.
What is it about gaming that makes it so attractive?
So, kind of growing up, it was always like, oh, games are just for kids. Mm-hmm. But that stigma of gaming just being for children has kind of gone away as we're all aging, and a lot of us do kind of, we love to kind of disconnect or even connect with different people, with our community, with our friends, our family through gaming. So especially during the pandemic, gaming has really been a lifeline for a lot of people and helped them thrive and connect when things have not been as easy to do so. So we kind of see gaming as a way, and this is what a lot of these projects are doing, is they're seeing gaming as a way to get people more involved in the blockchain space.
What's the blockchain all about in this context? Like, why do we need it? Like, blockchain technology is kind of slow and clunky compared to the centralized operations that power, all the slick games that are out there, whether it's Fortnite or Call of Duty or something like that. Why do we even need to talk about blockchain in this context?
Well, what you could do that's really interesting with blockchain is you start to integrate different smart contracts. You start integrating NFTs and access to things in an automated, decentralized way. So it really allows for people to access different things in a streamlined, easy way, where there isn't a centralized source that is able to cut you off. If we're seeing a lot of these gaming platforms that are like, basically like banning NFTs from their platform and doing this. They're basically kind of looking at bad actors in the space and pushing them out. And I'm not saying that we're not going to have some sort of governance within the system, but when you look at blockchain, it's more of, you start talking about the Web3, buzzword that we're seeing flying around everywhere, where the power is in your hands. You own your own data, and you're able to get paid for how you interact with this new system.
What are the economics that we're talking about? Why would somebody be attracted to this as a means of income?
So we are focusing on, other countries like the Philippines and Africa and parts of Asia for this, first, just because we do see kind of that model, right? Axie Infinity was a great example of this and still is an amazing example of providing a simple game for people to use, and they're able to earn, enough of a living wage to really change their lives. What might be a small amount for, of income per day for other countries, it's a different story in, like, let's say the Philippines. So we really want to focus on those countries first for a lot of this play to earn stuff. But beyond just play to earn, it's really about maximizing those yields. So, there's play to earn by itself, but then we see StrongNode playing a major part in maximizing that earning model by providing the ability for people to provide their computational CPU power to power this network.
So in other words, you're giving people access to these games through your own computing power.
Yeah, more or less. We're providing a platform that gives people access to all these different games. allows them to easily connect with other people around the globe. We kind of want to recreate the LAN party of yesteryear. Growing up, I loved basically bringing my massive computer to a big to somebody's house, or to just like the cafeteria at the school, and playing games with others. I now more than ever, people are more isolated, more indoors, and we still want to bring that to them in a certain way. So we kind of see us as that enabler to help connect communities, help advocate for different things, especially around, there's a lot of things that are plaguing the gaming community, like toxicity. So we want to be kind of that thought leader in the space when it comes to not just gaming, not just play to earn, but also just creating a better environment for people to thrive.
Yeah. So I looked at OG Life, one of your projects, and they talk a lot about different types of communities. Can you just give us a flavor of what that means in that context?
Sure. So, when you talk about blockchain, you talk about, one thing I want to talk about is like NFTs, for instance. NFTs are kind of a bubble right now, where there's, all these apes and animals, and, there's all these things that the prices are inflated. But like, as we see in most market cycles, that kind of, before there's adoption, there usually is an inflation of a bubble before it pops, and then there's more adoption and during that bear cycle, things are built. So NFTs are here to stay as a way to provide basically identity and access to certain things. In this sense, we see kind of NFTs giving different communities, basically giving different communities the ability to know kind of that whoever's in their community should be in that community. So a good example of that is, we brought on militarygames.com, which is a group of 5,000 military veterans that love to game together. And we envision kind of identifying them as veterans, giving them an NFT, like an anonymized NFT that shows that they're a veteran, going through all of the kind of identification process in the back end, where we don't actually have access to that information, but we're able to verify that they are indeed a veteran, and then giving them basically an area in a metaverse to be together. So creating we could create a military base in our metaverse where truly only military veterans can come together and play games and talk and just be there for each other.
Okay, interesting. Why don't we take this out, maybe extrapolate a little bit beyond what you're building right today, and
Sure.
help me understand where this might be of relevance to other types of institutions. Obviously in my world, it might be financial institutions, but it could be other types of enterprises or groups. How do you see this potentially being used in the broader world outside of just the narrow focuses of what you're building? Do we have a sense of where the sort of NFT based coding behind the scenes of people interacting virtually, whether playing games or doing something else, where do you see this going?
Yeah, so we're building something called StrongNode ID, which is basically a KYC platform that anonymizes who the users are, but kind of tells different platforms whether that user should have access to something or not. A good example is, being in the US, I might want to play games. I might not be able to necessarily interact with the token because of possible SEC rules and things like that. So, there could be different restrictions across different platforms, especially when you talk about, maybe staking stable coin to get high yields, things like that. So being able to identify who the users are, giving them an NFT that gives them a certain level of access to different platforms, and then enabling them to basically, and teaching them how to access those different services. A good kind of crazy example, but a good example would be like, Kim Jong-un might want to play games on our platform. We might say, okay, you can play some games, but you can't necessarily interact with the token because you are in a country that, falls under laws where you can't use our token, but you can play games and have points on the system. So, there could be users that basically everything they do is just with points, and there could be users that have higher access because they KYC'd and they identified themselves as people in a country that are able to interact with the token, and then they can get additional benefits from being in the blockchain space and being in gaming.
Yeah. How does the KYC aspect work?
There's different levels of KYC that we're going to bake in because since this is an anonymized system, we could incentivize people to actually provide more information. So it kind of in a world where things are going cookieless, this could actually become a pretty powerful tool to know interests of people, but without actually knowing who they actually are. Especially when we talk about GDPR and all of these other, other kind of restrictions around holding people's data. Yeah, exactly. So we're building out a system that allows us to identify who somebody is, but without actually knowing who they are.
On the DeFi aspect, and in general with the business models that are being built around gaming protocols in the blockchain space, the network effect is obviously very important, but how important, is it the whole thing? So for example, is the revenue generation and the ability of the players to earn based on an ever-growing group of people, i.e. it only works if you're adding more people? Or is there a point where you can still generate revenue and still have a business even if user bases fall off?
You could still have a revenue generating system, even if users fall off, though. I mean, obviously, we're going to be building and adding so many different things to this that we can't see why people would drop off because we do see we see a lot of holes in the gaming space and a lot of holes in the blockchain space, and we really want to fill those holes.
But then, of course, you're monetizing their data, right? I mean, anything that's free, there's not really a free lunch. I mean, they can play, but you're taking that data. And what is the way that you want to use that? I mean, how do you use that both for your own commercial purposes as well as for the members?
Yeah, we haven't fully baked out exactly what we're going to do there, since it is anonymized data, though. And if we are able to get people's interest, we could, at least on the surface, provide basic advertising in a way where people can actually opt into that and get rewarded for seeing that advertisement. I actually come from the digital advertising space. I worked at Adobe. Before that, I worked at TubeMogul, which was a DSP that got acquired by Adobe. Advertising obviously is still a massive industry. And we're seeing players like Brave. Brave is a great company that's actually rewarding people to watch ads. So we see more of a system like that where people can opt in or out, and can get rewarded if they see ads, but they still want to see ads that are relevant to them. And that's where kind of providing more information around their interests in an anonymized way can really help drive engagement, help drive clicks to our advertisers. Last
thing is, if I'm sitting in some big enterprise and I'm on my desk or in the boardroom, and this stuff seems like it's a leisure activity. It may not have anything to do with me, but although maybe me or my family members are gamers in our free time. How should they be thinking of what's happening in this space? Is this just some crazy stuff, leisure activity with some blockchain in it, and therefore not relevant to me? Or are there things happening that you guys are building and people in your space are building that large institutions should be thinking, oh, this is something I could use, or this is something I need to keep an eye on?
Yeah, well, we're hearing a lot about metaverses. I mean, Facebook even changed their name to Meta. This wave is moving very quickly. And as people start to plug in to these different game environments more, or they're actually evolving from game environments to more just like, this is your actual environment. So, logging into a game, running around with your friends, doing that kind of stuff. That environment is very powerful. If you realize that people are, going to be playing this for hours, you can really create different microeconomies within these systems. So if you're a traditional company, you might want a presence in that space. This is a new form to get people to use your services, and where you can actually advertise to them.
Right.
And in regards to just the space itself and why people should care is, if people realize that they could, for instance, take some stable coin and stake that stable coin, and basically provide liquidity into a market in an automated way, similar to how banks do it, but basically get rewarded with a higher yield than they could in traditional finance. More people would jump on board, but people's appetite for basically people's appetite for possible scams and basically crypto in general is not very high right now. So as the system gets simpler, as more gaming elements get integrated into it, I think people will start to kind of be able to access it in an easier, more fun way, and less confusing, really, because all this stuff is very, very confusing, and the UX is not very good on most of these systems. So when you bring gaming in, it really simplifies it for people.
Right, great. Gil Bashan, I want to thank you so much for coming on to DigFin VOX. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Really appreciate it. Really look forward to talking more in the future.
Okay.